You should never let your lifting equipment become a crutch. This is a commonly parroted mantra in the strength and conditioning world that has led to other brilliant adages such as there are no weightlifting belts in the jungle, or weight classes, or CPAPs. You get the point. But basically, lifting equipment, so belts, sleeves, wraps, straps, etc., exists, and we can use that equipment to enhance our results. But for some of us, this reliance goes too far, and eventually these things supposedly become a quote-unquote crutch for these people, thereby holding back their potential in some typically never clarified upon fashion. And just real quick, please remember to like the video and subscribe to my channel. And if you enjoy content like this, then please consider supporting my work by picking up a training program from my website. It's on EnkiriEliteFitness.com. I have over 60 5-star reviews on Google. You can check them out for yourself. And if you do, your gains will thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. And while there are certainly potential issues that can occur with the over-reliance on supportive equipment, especially the more supportive said equipment becomes, most of us simply take this assertion at face value without ever really questioning the veracity of it. Most people actually think belt usage makes your abs weak, even though that's a fallacy, and proper belt usage actually enhances long-term weight training results. Cue Mario Rios disparaging anyone who dares consider what the potential benefits of wearing a belt could be. But is it really a crutch? What determines whether a particular piece of equipment is a crutch for somebody or not? Let's look at lifting belts, for example. Is a belt a crutch if you can squat your max with the belt, but not without it? That would be an odd way of making the determination because anybody skilled in belt usage will be able to squat more weight with the belt than without it, courtesy of the enhanced intra-abdominal pressure that it allows you to create. Is a belt a crutch if you can only squat anything remotely impressive at all with the belt on, but not with the belt off? This is probably closer to the tool becoming an actual crutch, somebody having a massive discrepancy between their belted and beltless capacity. But is this even something that really happens in the real world? In my experience, not really. In my experience, as the capability to handle weights with the belt increases, so too, pretty much proportionally, does the ability to handle weights without the belt. I guess if somebody truly had the issue where their belted capacity kept increasing, but their unbelted capacity did not increase, then that would mean that the belt had truly become a crutch for that person. In having coached hundreds of athletes, I've never actually seen this happen, but I suppose it could. Is a belt a crutch if you can only squat pain-free with the belt on, but not with the belt off? Or even further, is a belt a crutch if your reliance on its use causes you to be in pain after the fact? This would probably be the most accurate way of determining something like a belt or sleeves or even wraps could be a crutch or not. If you are constantly in pain to such an extent that you can't even do something reasonably pain-free unless you introduce the piece of supportive equipment, in this case basically making it a band-aid, or if using the piece of supportive equipment creates a kicking the can down the road type of effect that causes you to be in pain later because you are using it to mask some issue rather than actually face that issue head on and address that issue, then perhaps the tool has become a crutch after all. In this case, the prudent course of action becomes readying the body to exist in the absence of the crutch, as at that point, the crutch is probably a contributing factor to your ailment. Something is missing intrinsically, but that intrinsic factor cannot be bolstered because the crutch prevents that from occurring. However, even this becomes a potentially dubious assertion if we put it under deeper scrutiny. Looking at something like knee sleeves, for example. Sleeves provide a small amount of compression around the knee joint. The slight compressive effect itself can often make the joint feel happier in general. As well, the warmth that this effect creates can enhance circulation in the joint, which is something that can actually be therapeutic. Now, personally, I had been wearing knee sleeves during my squatting exercises for years, not because my knees hurt, but simply because I wanted that little bit of rebound out of the hole that you can get from the compressive effect. That slight rebound can help you get a little bit more weight on the bar and lift a little bit more weight. I started chasing numbers in my early 20s, and this led me to adding in, at first, a pair of light knee sleeves, and eventually what were then at the time considered to be the creme de la creme knee sleeves from a how much weight you can lift perspective that were still legal in powerlifting competition. And those were the original SBD knee sleeves. Those were considered the primo legal sleeve for powerlifting purposes back around 2016 or so. I still own mine to this day. They're really solid knee sleeves. Now, after I stopped worrying about powerlifting, I kept the knee sleeves around in my training anyway, fluttering between various brands and models, but always using a moderately supportive sleeve with the intent of being able to, hopefully, lift a little bit more weight than I could without them. Recently, however, I decided that I wanted to be a little bit more hardcore and go back to naked knees on my heavy squats. Weight on the bar had become less important to me than overall movement capacity and mobility under load. So for the first time in many years, I stopped wearing knee sleeves. As noted, I had been moving towards trying to improve my range of motion and my general mobility levels on a host of exercises. And with that, I ended up really liking the freedom of movement that bare knees provided me. I felt strong, limber, and unimpeded this way, and I really enjoyed training my heavy squats with no supportive equipment beyond my trusty old belt, and we will save the belt usage deep dive for another video on another day. Unfortunately, however, all good things must come to an end. After a little while of squatting with bare knees, I started to notice an insidious pain building up in my knees, right at the front on the patella. I had never experienced knee pain before in about a decade and a half of lifting, so this was new for me. And actually, as a side note, as a teenage athlete, I'm talking 15, 16, 17 years old, my knees used to kill me. It took a lot of warming up for me to be able to run and jump pain-free when I was around that age range, like 16 to even up to 20 years old. It was around that time that I discovered squats and built stronger legs, and with that, my knee pain actually vanished entirely. And hey, would you look at that? In retrospect, it looks like I missed the opportunity to build a multi-million-dollar brand around having knee pain that was magically cured by lifting weights. Side notes aside, though, and back to more recent history, I had been squatting with bare knees for several months now, and my knees were really starting to hurt. After each lower body workout, within just an hour or so after wrapping up the training session, they would be killing me, man. I'm talking sore as hell. Walking up and down the stairs started to become cumbersome, to say the least. After a few days, the pain would subside, but then I would hit legs again, and it would come right back in full force. Being as how I hit my lower body hard 2 times per week, well, that meant that my knees were basically hurting me 98% of the time. Pretty much the only time they weren't hurting was when I was training my lower body. Then eventually I got COVID, which was my 3rd time coming down with it, and on that 3rd time, my knees, which were already starting to get beat up, started absolutely screaming at me for weeks. And then my workouts would make that pain even worse. And then after my workouts and in the few days that followed it, that pain would improve only slightly. Now, after having contracted COVID. But it never went back to a pain-free baseline like it had been doing before. So now it was just constant, persistent pain. This went on for weeks and weeks, long after I had kicked the virus, which only impacted me for 2 or 3 days. I simply could not get back to a pain-free baseline in my knees anymore. And I even resorted to trying a topical NSAID, that is diclofenac, which has recently been made available as an OTC topical NSAID in the United States. This protocol helped me a little bit, but the pain persisted anyway, and upon stopping the anti-inflammatory, it bounced right back up to peak levels again. At this point, enough was enough for me, and I decided to revisit an old friend just to see what would happen. So I once again started wearing my trusty knee sleeves for all my heavy squats, as well as for any volume work that I would do on squatting or lunging variations afterwards. Sure enough, after a couple weeks, the pain started to fade. And then, after a couple more weeks, it had dissipated entirely. No NSAIDs required, no workload modification required. Just the simple but judicious addition of a valuable tool that I had once relied on for years and years without really giving it much thought. So now, I wear my knee sleeves again when I squat heavy. And then later on, I can run and I can jump and I can do so completely pain-free without wearing the knee sleeves. Contrast this when I was squatting with bare knees and it was painful and cumbersome to run and to jump. Those first few steps were always owie, and it took me longer than I'm comfortable with to get warmed up and primed and ready to go full bore without having to think about if I'm going to ache in the process. I also didn't want to walk up and down stairs because my knees fucking hurt when I was doing so. So does this make the sleeves a crutch for me? Am I just coping for my crutch like an alcoholic who can totally stop drinking anytime they want? I can perform better now without the sleeves by selectively wearing the sleeves than I could perform without wearing the sleeves at all. By selectively wearing the sleeves, my general readiness level is much higher without them on than it was when I didn't wear them at all. I'm in far less pain during my athletic endeavors, and overall, that is, I'm in zero pain, actually, by wearing the knee sleeves during heavy and high volume bouts of leg training in the gym than I was when I skipped wearing the knee sleeves in the gym. Going sleeveless in the gym, my knees would be sore warming up, they would ache like hell after the workout, and they would ache like hell warming up for sprints, jumps, sports, etc. Going sleeved in the gym, my knees do not ache during warm-ups, they do not ache after the workout, and they do not ache when I am running, jumping, and playing sports. All those things in the absence of the sleeves altogether. So does this make the sleeves a crutch for me? I don't think it does. I think I'm towing the line of where many people would consider a tool to have become a crutch because I am in pain without the tool, right? My so-called quote-unquote natural state. And my pain goes away when the tool is utilized judiciously, my quote-unquote unnatural state. But then I have to argue that if by using the sleeves, my overall pain levels are drastically reduced across a broad spectrum of activities, and my overall functionality and level of performance is unimpeded, and my joint health is not negatively impacted by using the tool, then who the fuck cares? Let it be a crutch. I'll be crutchy fucking McGee over here, and I do not give a shit. You can laugh at me, point fingers, call me a weak-minded little bitch who's not hardcore enough to keep it raw, brah. I don't care at all, man. You know why? Because my knees feel like $1,000,000 again. I'm as strong as ever. I'm as fast as ever. I can jump as high and as far as ever. I am as agile as ever. And I am 36 years old and I can jump off the roof of my damn house for fun without a hitch and without any pain before, during, or after. If that is what using a crutch gets me, then I will take that all day, every day, and twice on motherfucking Sunday. If using a tool actually enhances your readiness, decreases your pain, and improves your health and well-being, then who really cares if somebody else thinks it's a crutch or not? It is objectively making you better. But there are no knee sleeves in the jungle, bro. Well, good thing I don't live in the jungle, you Liver King sympathizing lemming. So that is why I stopped wearing knee sleeves and then started wearing them again. Keep training hard, guys.